So how I make my squares is I have this one for reference. That's why I don't exactly know how many rows I did. I think it was somewhere around 20, 21. But I also changed it because I'm using Red Heart yarn, and Red Heart is bad about being different sizes. So I've had to change it a little bit. So that's why I'm saying mine are 5.5 inches. So if you make some squares and they don't come out exactly the same, if you use 18 or 20 or whatever, just change it, fix it, or have squares a little bit bigger or smaller. So I'm starting with a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 18. And if you don't know how to chain, you start with your knot, you yarn over on your hook and pull through your hole. And that's 18. It might be like a little bit smaller than your other square, but that's okay, it will get bigger. Now chain one more and go ahead and insert into your first row, and you're just gonna single crochet all the way up until you have a 5.5 by 5.5 inch square. After you get one, so that you can make this more of a mindless thing and you can zone out while you do it or watch a TV show, which I think is much better than counting constantly. You can finish your first square, and it also helps make sure all your squares are the same, and you can have a reference square. So that's what this is. So I'm gonna keep making squares because I didn't make them all at once because I thought that was boring, and I figured it would be better for me to construct it as I went. So I made a bunch at the beginning. I made like 20 or 30 at the beginning, and then I started constructing the sleeves and the back piece, and now I'm just making some more squares, and I'll start making the front pieces so that it helps with my commitment to this, and it helps keep things less monotonous, I guess, less boring, because I didn't do any different stitches. I did single crochets for everything because this is the first cardigan I've made, and I didn't want to try to make something too hard, too brain melting, and I wanted it done quick. So this is what I chose. You can add different stitches if you want to. Just make sure your squares are 5.5 by 5.5. And when you get to the end of your row, I'm almost there, about 2 away, make sure so that your square is a square and doesn't turn into a curve. I just did my last single crochet. I'm going to chain up one, and I'm going to start my next row. So just do that every time you start a row, and you'll have a nice straight square. And I guess I should show you how to single crochet if I'm going to show you how to chain, but basically I'm going to do this as best I can. So we're going to insert to this one right here. So insert into your V, making sure you get both loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, now pull through both loops. We're going to do that one more time. Insert into your V, yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, and pull through both loops. And that's how you single crochet. I'm not doing a full like how to crochet tutorial, so if you don't know how to crochet, it'd probably be better for you to go check out some videos, because I might do that next if people want that, but at the moment I'm just teaching you, not teaching, but giving a general outline of how I did this sweater. Okay, so I'm about to slip stitch my squares together, and I'm going to use these two because I'm starting a new row. So I'm going to line them up how I want them, take my hook and put it, I don't have a good way to video this, and I'm going to insert it between the two squares in the corner, like that. And then I'll take my just scrap yarn. You probably want to use a yarn in the right color, but I really don't care. Then you take it, I'm going to double knot it, take my hook out, and just tie this so it's secure because I want my sweater to be very sturdy. This may be unnecessary, but I think it's good to do, good practice. Double knot, triple knot, whatever you want to do. So now you insert back into that hole, wherever it is. Can't see it because I'm using the black side. And line up your squares again. And now you're just going to take your yarn over, pull through into your next hole, through both squares, yarn over, pull through, and pull through your other loop. And do it again. Insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through that loop again. So I've started slip stitching together. It makes this like sandwich kind of look, and it makes this kind of seam. So you can kind of see the brown, but that's okay. On mine, I'll try to find here, this square. Like, you can kind of see the different color right there, but that's if you really look at it, and it doesn't bother me that bad, so I don't mind. If it'll bother you for squares like the black and white, you could just use a black, or you could just use white. It'll look normal, it'll look fine. And that's how I connected my squares, and I will be back when I have a whole row connected. Okay, I just finished making my row. It looks like this. Also, something I wanted to say, because I was a little worried about it, but I'm not crazy. It's fine, it fixes. If your squares aren't like this and aren't like perfectly lined up, like the top, that one's a little bit weird. Like the top's a little bit weird, and maybe you have one square that's way too big over the other ones. It will line up just fine. Several of these were way too big. Trying to find one. I had a few on here that I had to deal with, but basically all you have to do is account for it, and your seam will stay in a pretty straight line. So like you can see where it's a straight line. Well, when your so that your seam's the same and your squares line up. So like if this one was way up here, I wouldn't want to try to sew up to it. I'd want to either, you can fold it over, I did that, or you just carry the seam straight across and just ignore this up here. Maybe I'll make a diagram, I don't know, that's a little confusing, but it's okay. So now make sure if you're working with squares, like flower squares have a pretty side, make sure you're not sewing on your pretty side because you will have seams. And I'm going to connect this like this. Basically I connect it in strips, so I'm going to connect this strip and I'm going to slip stitch it the same way. But when I connect these big strips, I take these little strings and I tie them together in knots, so they kind of already hold it together. I'll do that and I'll show you what it looks like. I tied all my knots, as you can see. Tied them all. And I'll even tie the ends too, but I don't have any end things. So now all I have to do is just bunch it up so that I can slip stitch everything together, and it'll look like that when it's done. So yeah, hope this is understandable.